So the movie that I decided to review for my vlog was Friday Night Lights, the movie, not the TV show. Before I start my vlog, I just want to say that my neighbor, who is sort of a jerk, is working on renovating his house. So if you hear hammering in the background, that's his annoying self. So anyways, all right, so the characters of the movie, there's 4 of them. They're all seniors, and they're all the main characters of the movie. Plus, there's another character who's the coach. The first character is Boobie Miles. He's basically the star of the team. He's the player that's most widely known by the community. Basically, the movie, it's based on a true story, and the football team that is in this movie is from Texas, and the communities down there are like all about football, and that's really like the sport that they care about. So even football in high school is like a really big thing. So basically the whole community is like obsessed with Boobie Miles. There's like little kids that are like always following him around asking for a signature. And he's not humble at all. He's very cocky. There's many different examples of this throughout the movie, which I'll get into later. And he has many D1 teams that are looking at him when he's gonna start playing football in college in the future. The next character is Ivory Christian. He is very much the quiet player. He leads by example very much. He doesn't really have much to say. He's not cocky at all, and he's very dedicated and hardworking. He's basically the complete opposite of Boobie. The third character is Don Billingsley. He is the rebel of the team. He's the partier. He's basically the one that has anger issues. He's unpredictable and quick-tempered, but he's underestimated on the field. His mental game isn't very good for other reasons that I'll get into later on, but he's underestimated in the sense that he's a really good player. He just needs like a confidence booster, which happens in the movie later. And the fourth character on the football team is the quarterback, Mike Winchell. He's basically the main leader of the team. He's quiet too, but he's very respected. He's humble and hardworking, and he's definitely the most responsible of the team. And then the other character that's not an adolescent, but he's really important, is Coach Gaines, and he's the head coach. He holds the team together like glue, and he's just a very selfless person. He's passionate about the game, and he treats all of his players like his sons. There are 5 main issues that I'm gonna analyze dealing with all of the players and either like their peers or their family, their school, anything like that. The first one is relationships with parents. So I think the most prominent relationship issue in this movie has to do with Don and his dad. So some background information. Don's dad is a single father, and they don't really say why the mom's not in the picture, but she's not by any means. His dad switches from girlfriend to girlfriend, and they're all like younger. Like it seems like they're in their like 20s, while his dad's probably in like the 50s range. Okay, a big truck just went by. That's rude. Anyways, yeah, his dad is an alcoholic pretty bad. He's always drunk. He comes to all the games drunk. And it's funny because I guess in Texas, they even have crowds at practices. I don't know, like there was recruiting and stuff going on at the practices, but even the parents were watching the practices, which is like really weird. But he shows up to everything drunk, and he has major anger issues. And he's very much abusive to Don as well, both emotionally and physically. Basically, he only cares about Don and praises him if he does something good in football. He doesn't really care about how well Don is doing in school, and he only really cares about football. So if Don has like a bad game, in one of the scenes in the movie, he was drunk and it was after a football game, and Don didn't do like up to his expectations as well as he wanted to. So he laid down in the back of Don's car and was hitting him from the back seat, and then busted out both of Don's back windows with his feet. So yeah, he only praises Don if he does good in football. He doesn't really care about anything else going on in his son's life. And I would say this is definitely an authoritarian parenting style. In our book, on page 106, chapter 4, it defines authoritarian parents as parents who use punitive, absolute, and forceful discipline, and who place a premium on obedience and conformity. So it's basically high discipline, low support. And that basically explains his dad to a T. And there is even another scene in the movie where it's the first day of practice, and he didn't catch a ball or didn't do something to his dad's expectations, and his dad literally walks on the field and shoves Don and pushes him on the ground and is going after him, and then Don's teammates have to sort of take his dad aside and separate the two. And also Don really doesn't want anything to do with his dad. Even the interviewers ask him like about his dad, and he just says like, next question. So it's pretty obvious that there's some bad issues in that relationship.
Hut!
Are you sure he's part of your gene pool, Charlie?
Shit.
Alert everybody.
What about the expectations of coaching a team like this in a community like this?
Well, I guess there's always a surprise or two in every community.
Ball, just concentrate on hanging on the ball. Both hands, okay?
Hey.
Both hands, that's
Donnie.
all.
Hey, come here. Come here. What's the problem?
Get off the field, Dad.
Why can't you hold on to the football? What's so goddamn hard about holding on to it?
I'm sorry.
All you gotta do is hold on to the goddamn football, and you can't do it. Tell me why you can't do it. Just tell me. That's all I wanna know.
I'll try better next time.
Come on. Hey. Don't you walk away from me. Don't you walk away from me when I'm talking to you. You hear me? Tell me why you can't hold on to the ball.
Enough.
Come on.
Mr.
Tell me. Answer a
Ball,
question.
please.
Answer. First day of practice, Mr. Billy.
Practice.
Hold on.
Seriously.
Good. Come on.
Enough. Charlie. Okay.
Embarrassing me out here.
Okay.
Christ.
It's all right, John.
Okay, so my roommate is currently passed out and snoring on my bed, so we're gonna add her to the problems with the noise around here, as well as the neighbor that's hammering away on his deck or whatever. Anyways, so the next issue I want to talk about is developmental tasks such as identity, and I want to focus on Boobie Miles, the star of the team. Basically, I was reading chapter 8 of the book, and I came across some things that they said about self-esteem. So on page 218 it says self-esteem is enhanced by having the approval of others, especially parents and peers. And then it goes on to say that adolescents who derive their self-esteem relatively more from peers than from teachers or parents show more behavioral problems and poor school achievement. So that basically sums up Boobie Miles. Yeah, so he brags about himself a lot, and it's not just a little bragging, it's like a lot of bragging throughout the movie. Examples are like during the interviews of like the first day of practice. I remember the interviewer was asking him like, well, how are your grades, Boobie? And he was like, oh, I get all A's. And then the interviewer was like, really? And he was like, yeah, I get all A's. He's like, there's only one subject. And then they're like, well, what subject is that, Boobie? And he was like, football. Like, that's the only subject there is. I get all A's. And then later on, he was like just standing there. He's like, yeah, it's hard to be humble or whatever. And it's just weird because he knows he's not humble at all, but he's basically saying he is. And then there was another scene, and he was basically talking to one of the, I think he's a junior, he was talking to him, and he was saying basically that you have to have a certain type of shoe or cleat, or if you're not going to have that type of cleat and you don't wear that type of cleat, then you're going to do bad. Because I'm pretty sure the underclassman was wearing like Adidas or something, like white colored Adidas cleats. And then he was like, no, you need to wear like black Nikes or something. Like, you're not going to be successful if you don't wear black Nikes. And then I remember he looked at Ivory, the character that's like completely opposite of him, and he's like, yeah, tell him, Ivory, like, you need to wear this certain type of shoe or cleat or you're not going to be successful. And then Ivory just looks over at him and he's like, I can knock you out in a pair of flip-flops, and then doesn't say anything else. So that proves right there that he's like super cocky, and the underclassman gets really upset and then ends up like coloring his white cleats black with a Sharpie before practice, all because of Booby. And then there was another scene, Mike Winchell, the quarterback, they were all lifting, and Mike looked at Booby because Booby like wasn't lifting. He was just like standing there like running his mouth, and basically Booby was about to walk out of the lifting room, and then Mike was like, hey, Booby. Booby's like, what? He's like, you didn't lift. And then Booby was just like, this is God-given. Like, I don't really need to lift. I'm good enough. Like, I don't need to do anything to help myself. This is basically a God-given talent, and I don't need to work for it. So basically, Booby thinks of himself as like the star that doesn't need to work for his playtime or anything like that. And I think that's really important because it ends up hurting him later on in the movie.
Where your girlfriend at, Waterbug?
Well,
You ain't got a girlfriend yet?
come on, let's go. Snap it up.
You wanna know why you ain't got a girl yet, Waterbug?
Why?
You got the wrong shoes on, man. You got on white Adidas. Everybody know the shoe is nice. Nothing holds a nickel next to Nike. Ask Ivory. Ask Preacher Man.
What kind of shoes in your feet don't matter.
Come on, Preacher. Bullshit.
Don't matter at all.
You know God made black beautiful. God made Booby beautiful. Black and strong.
His mouth keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And when Booby knocks some fools out, Booby gonna knock them out with black Nikes on his feet. Ain't that right?
I could knock you on a pair of flip-flops.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna knock them out with Nikes.
So the third issue that we're going to analyze is economic stress and poverty and how that influences adolescence. So chapter 4 about families on page 18, it says that income, like divorce, income loss is associated with disruptions in parenting, which in turn lead to increases in adolescent difficulties, including a diminished sense of mastery, increased emotional distress, academic and interpersonal problems, and delinquency. Well, the adolescent that faces poverty in this movie is Mike Winchell, and he is the quarterback of the team, basically the main leader. So he has a single mother, and she's like very supportive of him. She wants to be rooting for him in school and in football, but the only problem is that she's mentally ill, and it doesn't really go into depth and say what type of mental illnesses she has, but basically context clues in the movie can tell you that with all the pills she's taking and stuff, she has some mental illnesses. And then in the movie, some of Mike's peers ask him, like, is your mom crazy? And he says no, because I think he's trying to sort of have her back, but it's apparent that she really does have some mental issues. And basically all of his siblings are gone, and his dad's not in the picture, but all of his siblings are older and they're not around. He even tries to call them at one point in the movie, and he tries to call one of his siblings and ask, like, hey, can you come help take care of mom? And they're not willing to. So he takes care of not only himself, but her at a young age. Like, he's only a senior in high school. he's worried about taking care of his mother before anything else. So he has a lot of responsibilities. He has to take care of the house, take care of his mother, worry about his schoolwork, his grades, and football, lastly. And basically, you know, him and his mom need money, but you can tell that, like, she's not working and he has to juggle all those things. So, like, he doesn't really have time to work either. And then it goes into depth with the whole poverty situation when one of the scenes, you know, there's a D1 college that's really looking at him. And so, you know, they come to his house and talk to him and his mom. And basically they're saying that they're gonna offer him a scholarship later on. And I mean, they need money, so all the scholarship he can get, you know, he's willing to play football for the college. And the only problem is that the school is far away, and I think that you can tell that he really wants to go to a school that is close to his home because he's more worried about his mother and her health and who's going to take care of her. Whereas she looked at the coach and was like, he'll sign today. Like, if you give him a scholarship, he'll sign today. So she, like, really cares about him and stuff, and he only cares about her. You know, he's like, how far away is your school and stuff. So it just really shows, like, how much poverty affects adolescents, and sort of how he's had to mature earlier than all of his other peers because, you know, he's like the head of his house. He has to take care of himself and his mother. So it just really shows how much poverty can affect someone that's that young, and how he has to mature due to the fact that he's basically the only person taking care of a household and 2 people. The next topic to talk about is peer groups, and the character that I'd really like to focus on is Ivory, who is the one that's the complete opposite of Booby. He's the quiet one that doesn't really talk. So yeah, he's part of the football crowd, and a crowd, which is defined in our books on page 129, is large, loosely organized groups of young people composed of several cliques and typically organized around common shared activity. So yeah, he's part of the football crowd, but he's not really a part of any cliques. And a clique is a small, tightly knit group of between 2 and 12 friends, generally of the same sex and age. The only time that you really see the character of Ivory is during football practice. I think there's one other scene when he's like actually at a high school party, but when he's there, he doesn't talk to anyone. Like, there was even a girl that asked him a question a couple times and he didn't say anything. So yeah, that was really funny because he just like sat there. But yeah, he's not part of any cliques. He doesn't really have any close friends. So he keeps to himself, and just like you can tell in the different ways that he does keep to himself, because like in the movie so many people ask him questions and he just doesn't answer. He doesn't talk at all, but he is a leader. He's probably one of the biggest leaders on the team just due to the fact that he leads by example. He's probably the definition of like the most selfless player that you could ask for in many different ways. But yeah, it's funny because during his interview of the first practice, the interviewer is like, do you like school? No answer. And then he's like, do you like football? No answer. And then he's just like, where does all that anger come from? And then he just doesn't say anything. He's just looking at the interviewer. So basically, I need to flip the page, but basically he lives a life of high sociometric popularity and a low perceived popularity. So sociometric popularity is how well liked an individual is, and he's really well liked. Like, he's definitely one of the most respected players on the team, just because he does everything right, and he treats all of the players like equally and stuff. And then he has like low perceived popularity because that's how much status or prestige an individual has, just by like the peers and stuff at his high school. That's on page 142, by the way. But yeah, he's liked a lot by his teammates, which is his crowd, but when it comes to like outside of football, he's not very popular. Not a lot of people know him, and he's not really one of the popular like players. Like the community doesn't really talk about him much when like they should talk about him a lot, but since he's so quiet, he's just sort of a player that's like brushed under the rug. But finally he gets tired of his teammates and players sort of being like cocky and not really like being a team and stuff, and in like the last game he snaps, and everyone listens, but yeah, they're in the locker room and he just like starts yelling, and everyone's like, is that really Ivory? But he basically like yells at them, and he like tells them to get their heads out of their asses, and like they need to start playing like a team and, you know, as like a group of people rather than just like playing for themselves. So I think he defines a person that, you know, fits into like a crowd but doesn't really have his own clique.
What in the hell happened on that
Right.
green?
You understand that?
40 yards? Hell no.
You guys are not doing any pass blocking. You're just stepping aside and letting them walk in.
Pop, 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 pop. That's what I want. All of you around that ball.
To go for two and get it every single time, that is ridiculous. Do you realize they have not even kicked a field goal yet?
We not trying to coach y'all now. Coach done gave y'all all these adjustments, okay? If you do everything the coach told you to do.
2-point conversions, I want those gone. Here's what we're going to do right here. We're going to use our speed. We're going to run Texas Power 4.
What's wrong with y'all? Y'all play like some little girls. Y'all like y'all never played football before. These guys are nothing.
You hear me?
They breathe just like we do.
Yes, sir.
They sweat just like we do.
Do you hear me?
They went through tour days. We went through tour days in 110-degree heat.
Yes, sir.
I want you to hit everything to move. If the ref gets in your way, you hit him.
Okay then, let's play.
But they're cheating us too. They're against us too. This is our team. This is us. Let's go right now. Let's get it up.
The last issue that I wanted to address was risk-taking, and I want to talk about risk-taking like as all four of the main characters in general. So basically after a game one night, they're all sitting at a diner eating, and this one guy like drives past them, and he's like, there's a party at this house, like you all need to go. So they all go. I guess Mike and Ivory sort of hesitate. They're like, yeah, we don't really know if we should go. And then Don's like, like we're going. So basically they all fall under peer pressure and they all end up going to this party. And we talked in class a lot about risk-taking and how like that part of your brain is sort of like still developing, and like you're more likely to take risks as an adolescent than as an adult. And so they go to this party and they all get like hammered, and yeah, they're risking a lot just because they're risking getting caught like with the police that night, and then if they get caught, they're risking basically maybe their season being over, because if you get in trouble you can't really play or whatever. And yeah, so, and then like the next morning they're all like hungover eating, and like policemen like walk up to them and they're like, oh, you're gonna win state and all this. And so it's sort of like ironic how the police are like talking to them about winning state when the night before they could have got state taken away from them when they were partying. So I think it's obvious that there's aspects of each character that cause all of their problems. The first one that we're gonna address is Booby and his problems. So obviously Booby is the cockiest player on the team, and his cockiness is what leads to like basically the end of his football career in high school. I know that's bad and I'm laughing, I shouldn't be laughing, but I mean, he sort of did it to himself. Basically, in the movie, you can look at context clues to figure out why his cockiness leads to his injury. So, basically, they're, like, killing a team. They have a high score, and then the other team, like, really doesn't have any points. And they're going to put the backup in for his position. And the backup, like the coach looks at the backup and is like, hey, you're going in. And the backup's like, oh, okay. So he starts running out on the field, and then the coach is like, whoa, like, where's your helmet? Well, he's like, oh, like, it's on the bench. I'll turn around and get it. So then when he turns around to get his helmet, Booby's sitting where he was, and he's like, Booby, like, where's my helmet? It was right there. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he's like looking for his helmet. He never ends up finding it, and then Booby stands up, drinks some water, laughs at him, and is like, oh, you can't play without your helmet. And then the coaches get into the backup's face and is like, you can't find your helmet, like, you're telling me you're going to go out on the field without a helmet? And so basically from context clues we can tell that Booby sort of hides the kid's helmet because he wants to go back in and play. So basically karma's a bitch, and Booby went in because his backup couldn't find his helmet because he hid it, and he goes out onto the field, and two of the players from the other team decide that they're gonna play dirty, and they basically sort of like tabletop him, I'd say. So they, like, the one ends up sandwiching him into the other one, and then his knee like cracks and he ends up tearing his ACL, and he's out for the rest of the season. So basically I feel like if Booby would stop being so cocky and sort of like learn that it's okay to like let his other teammates have a turn at the fame, then maybe that wouldn't have happened to him. So yeah, his main issue is cockiness, and if he would learn to control that, then maybe he wouldn't have so many problems. Ivory is the next character that we're gonna talk about. The aspect of his character that I guess causes him the most problems is quietness, and this is gonna be like a quick discussion on him because I don't really think that quietness should be a problem, but unfortunately it is for him. I think that he's pretty underestimated in just how good of a player he is because he is quiet, and I don't really think that's a bad thing. I think that there's all different types of leaders and all different types of players in a sport, and he just happens to be the silent leader. The community doesn't really notice him as much, and I don't really think that's fair, but whatever. Also, he's not that like popular in the school, and he doesn't really have any close friends due to the fact that he's quiet. I think that's stupid too, but whatever, my opinion doesn't matter. So yeah, that's his issue. I just feel like if maybe he would open up a little more, he would sort of be more of a like star in the eyes of the community. Don is the next character. So he's really quick-tempered, and he's a rebel and everything, but his aggression really takes a toll on like what type of athlete he is. So for example, his aggression is an issue when in one of the scenes he ends up getting like kicked off the field by the refs because he gets mad that the one kid on the other team got a touchdown. So after the kid gets a touchdown, he literally takes his kid by the face mask and like throws him to the ground. Then he gets like kicked off the field. Also, another issue that we need to address is basically his abusive father. Basically, if he isn't like being the best athlete he can be, then his dad gets mad at him, and then he has to face the abuse later on. So that really causes a lack of confidence in Don. That's why his mental game isn't so good, and I really feel like he could show so much more out on the field than what he does. And he does at the end of the movie when they're at state, he really does show that his mental game has improved, because I think he basically stops caring what other people are thinking about him and stuff, and he goes out there and he makes like a really, really good play for them. So yeah, I think that his father is a big issue in his life, but once he gets past like the aggression and stuff and starts looking past that and starts having his own confidence, then that really helps him out. And the last character is Mike. Basically, I think that the main aspect of his character that gets him into most of his problems is basically just having to miss out on his teenage years. I think that he tries to please so many other people with, you know, just having to take care of them, or basically making sure everyone on the team is okay, that basically that's where most of his stress comes from. Most of his stress comes from his home life too. So basically, if he could learn to take care of himself a little more, I feel like he would be able to live more of a stress-free life.